let's get into kind of the overall landscape of this, because we saw the Kings at astronomical odds last season come from the clouds and finish on top of the Pacific Division at the end of the regular season. They obviously then get knocked out by the Warriors in round one. Where do they sit in the overall landscape of this division? Because I'm looking at this with the 5 teams, the Warriors, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Suns, and the Kings, and it is incredibly difficult to try and rank these 1 to 5 as we head into next season.
Yeah, I think it is really difficult. I mean, you look at the other divisions. I don't think there's any other division in the league where all 5 teams reasonably expect to clear the play-in. Like, mathematically, that's almost impossible that's going to happen, just because they play each other more times. And, just like, we're going to take 5 out of the 6 slots. But, it's theoretically possible, and all these teams probably expect that of themselves. Honestly, I think the Kings are probably right there with the Clippers as having the shakiest chances of repeating or getting back to the top of the division. You look at them, okay, they won the division last year. They were the 3 seed. They only had 48 wins. I mean, teams in the West have missed the playoffs entirely with 48 wins. And so they were the 3 seed. They had a plus 2.6 point differential. That's not what you usually get from a 3 seed. And so I think that is very likely that they play similarly to last year. You talked about their health. They were incredibly healthy. They got a great shooting season out of De'Aaron Fox. So, I mean, you just think they're a little bit unhealthy, and Fox comes back to earth just a little bit, and whatever improvement you get from Keegan Murray, even if it just offsets that, you're talking about a team that could win 48 games again and be the 7 seed. Right. And so that's going to feel like a disappointment, even if they maintain the status quo. And I think it's more likely they take a small step back. I mean, teams that have like a big jump, they tend to take a step back the next year. You think about the Hawks made all the way to the conference finals 2 years ago. They took a big step back. The Knicks jumped forward. They had a home court advantage. They took a step back, missed the playoffs the next year, and then built themselves into a team that seems like a pretty good bet to make the playoffs 2 years in a row now. So I think the Kings are going to go through something like that. And so I think it's more likely than not that the Kings are in the play-in mix rather than up in that top 6. And I think that I would probably pick them at this point. With my expectation that Harden will join the Clippers, I'm probably picking the Kings to be 5th out of 5.
Yep, I'm going through this in my head now, and I agree with that. I think you've got to have the Suns on top here just for the sheer amount of talent and scoring talent specifically in a regular season where a lot of teams choose just not to play defense. If you've got 3 elite level scorers plus a 4th in Ayton who can give you 20 points on any given night, that's going to go a long way to just racking up win after win. Sure, there's question marks over the rest of their roster and how that plays out, and there's question marks on their health and availability as well, because we know KD's had issues, we know that Beal's had issues as well, but I think you have to have them on top. Then I'd probably pair the Lakers and the Warriors together. I guess you've probably got to give it to the Lakers at this point just because of what we saw between the 2 teams in the second round of the playoffs, but the teams are somewhat different, and you throw Chris Paul into that matchup in the second round rather than Jordan Poole, and you might have a completely different story of how that series plays out. Then I'd say the Clippers, assuming Harden is going to be there. Even without Harden, I might even have them on above the Kings. But I think the Kings probably have a higher floor than the Clippers, simply because of the injury issues with PG and Kawhi. But the Clippers, particularly if they get Harden, I think certainly have a higher ceiling than the Kings. Anything else that you want to add in this Pacific Division at all before we finish up?
Yeah, I mentioned before that all 5 reasonably expect to, do well in the standings, to be able to compete in the playoffs. But 4 out of the 5 are these like incredibly veteran teams that have stars that have had some injury issues recently. And so, honestly, if you want me to tell you how many games the Lakers are going to win, okay, just tell me how many games LeBron and AD are going to play. Okay, yep. Clippers, tell me how many games PG and Kawhi are going to play. The Suns, okay, tell me how many games Booker and KD are going to play. Like, even the Warriors with Steph, with Chris Paul, with Clay, with Draymond. Like, we're kind of just talking about health here because we know all of these guys can win. They can win in the playoffs. And if we can get a playoffs with all these guys healthy, I think it's going to be incredible. And Denver is really hoping that there's some medical bills floating around because I think that they were incredible last year, but they did not have to face a team at the level that they were at. And so they didn't have to win a hard fought battle. And so they're hoping they don't have to do that again because you have these injury issues that either crop up in the playoffs, like the Clippers, or that bring a team down in the standings, like with the Warriors, so that they hit at a lower point. So I think honestly, where they're going to finish and how they get into the playoffs probably is up to health. With that being said, if everybody's healthy, who's the best team? I think that's a really interesting question. I think obviously the Lakers went the furthest last year. I think the Clippers have too many pieces that we're just not sure about, even if Kawhi and PG are healthy. Um, I think the Warriors, you're questioning their depth, but my confidence in Moody taking a step forward, Kuminga being able to take a step forward, we know that they can win. They won the title just 2 years ago. You compare them to the Suns. We don't know how their minimum guys are going to fit around their stars. We don't know what it's going to look like without a true point guard. Is Booker capable of doing that? How does Beal look in a winning situation? I think it's a fascinating question about which one of these teams at full health is the best. I think my money's still probably on Stephen Curry because I think he's the best player of that group. I think that Warriors core, if they're healthy, has proven the most. But there's a lot of really talented teams in the Pacific. There's a lot of star power, and so I think it's going to be fun to watch all year. But I'm really looking forward to some of these even intra-division matchups that might pop up in the playoffs.